All right, there's no question Donald Trump scored a big hit with his State of the Union address last night. And when I see him at his best like that, I often find myself wondering, why does it take such an outsized character to speak such simple truths? America is a great country. It's harder for bad guys to get into a place if there's a wall there. We should all be able to agree that late-term abortion is unnecessary and criminal. Socialism destroys freedom, and as a free nation, we should reject it. These aren't controversial issues. These are basic statements of fact and morality. Why does it take a huge, obstreperous orange TV guy to pronounce them so clearly from the presidential podium? I think the reason is that the left has managed to create a culture in which we hold these truths to be unspeakable. We're surrounded by movies and television shows, comedians, songs, social media, and news reports specifically designed to condemn and destroy anyone who transgresses by mentioning them, to cast him as racist or sexist or homophobic, you know all the other words. And Trump just doesn't care. He's an insensitive man. He hasn't lived a very moral life. He's not nice. He can stand being called all those names. When you outlaw the truth, only outlaws will speak the truth. And that's why Trump was standing there at the podium last night and not some more well-behaved Republican. So we had a great backstage last night. I don't know if you got to see that. A lot of people were watching. It went on and on and on. But after the speech especially, we had a lot of good conversation about the State of the Union, and we all agreed that it was a terrific State of the Union. It started out not as good as it ended, but by the time he was finished, he really was shaking the rafters and doing some great stuff. And the one thing that I can't get anybody, maybe Knowles agrees with me a little bit on this, but I can't get anybody to agree with me that Trump is really playing this game very, very well, and he's doing it on purpose. Everybody else around here thinks that Trump is just kind of a blundering guy, kind of occasionally does the right things. I don't think so at all. I think he's got great political instincts. I think he's like a running back. He knows where the daylight is, and he goes for it. But he also adapts, and he changes, and he realized after the midterms, he realized that some of his obstreperousness, some of his loudness, some of his belligerence was not playing well with a lot of segments of the American people. And unlike other politicians, he wants to get things done. That's his whole thing. His whole thing is he wants to accomplish things. You know, you look at some of these other people, guys like Jim Jordan. I don't mean to pick on Jim Jordan. I like him, but he's an absolutist about the wall. But where's his wall? He's an absolutist about immigration, but where's his bill? He hasn't passed anything. He hasn't gotten anything done. He's just insisted that it's his way or the highway. Trump will deal. He'll do things, and he wants to get things done, and he wants to see some results. So he's been keeping a low profile. He's been very un-Trumpian, and he has let the Democrats do what the Democrats do, which is show themselves to be loony as guano. I mean, the people on the left are out of their minds, and Trump knows they're the best thing he's got going, so he's kept a low profile. He set up this moment. He made the speech where he explained his point of view from the Oval Office. He made an offer that was a perfectly reasonable offer on border security. By the time he showed up, it was the left who looked ridiculous, and he got some great theater. He got the Democrats sitting on their hands when he announced that there was low Black and Latino unemployment. I mean, that's what they're not applauding for that. Some of them didn't applaud for the kid with cancer. They're not standing up for a child who's sick. Kamala Harris was sitting there shaking her head when Trump said he wanted to end sex slavery. Oh, no, you don't want to do that. And Bernie Sanders, this is my favorite moment, was Bernie Sanders frowning when Trump denounced socialism. And Nancy Pelosi, obviously everybody in the press and on the left, but I repeat myself, wants to depict Nancy Pelosi as this sharp, shrewd, tough operator. But I just thought she was a bore last night. She's standing behind him reading the speech and fidgeting and rolling her eyes. It was incredibly rude. And they didn't do that to Obama when he was giving State of the Union addresses. And obviously, the best one was the women. All the women show up in white for suffrage because they had to work so hard to win the vote. Oh, wait, no, they didn't. They just got elected because women can get elected anywhere they want now. So I don't know why they were wearing that. I remarked at the time it was interesting and different to see a lot of Democrats wearing white without the hoods. But I think that, he just made fools of them by celebrating the fact that there were so many women in Congress, so many women in the workplace, so that they had to stand up. And it was a great moment when he played them. Let's play the moment just when Trump, this is cut 7, Trump basically playing the Democrat women, milking standing ovations out of them.
No one has benefited more from a thriving economy than women, who have filled 58% of the newly created jobs last year. You weren't supposed to do that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All Americans can be proud that we have more women in the workforce than ever before. Don't sit yet. You're going to like this. And exactly 1 century after Congress passed the constitutional amendment giving women the right to vote, we also have more women serving in Congress than at any time before.
And they're all jumping around and high-fiving each other. And a lot of people said this, but the only thing they applauded for was themselves. They're so busy celebrating themselves, and it's not like they did anything to get there. I mean, obviously they ran the campaign, but they're not the ones who gave women the vote. They're not the ones who had to fight the fight. They're the recipients of that. They're the ones who should be grateful instead of complaining all the time. But that's all they do. And he just made them. It's funny. He made himself look good in the way he was joking with them and the way he ad-libs. It's really Trump at his best. He's at his best when he has a written speech and throws in a couple of ad-libs, as opposed to when he's doing the crazy stuff that he does. But again, if he wasn't that crazy guy, I don't think he'd be standing there. I think Hillary Clinton would be standing there if he wasn't that belligerent guy who didn't care about being called racist. He wouldn't be the president. And I think that that's the problem we have, that the fact that he will stand there and say those things. Like here, the best moment in the speech was the hit on socialism. I mean, this was really good stuff. This is cut number 9. And it's just stuff that you do not hear people in his position, enough Republicans saying as loudly and as distinctly and in this venue where he's surrounded by his opponents as well as his supporters. You just don't hear this enough.
2 weeks ago, the United States officially recognized the legitimate government of Venezuela and its new president, Juan Guaido. We stand with the Venezuelan people in their noble quest for freedom, and we condemn the brutality of the Maduro regime, whose socialist policies have turned that nation from being the wealthiest in South America into a state of abject poverty and despair. Here in the United States, we are alarmed by the new calls to adopt socialism in our country. America was founded on liberty and independence, and not government coercion, domination, and control. We are born free, and we will stay free.
That was great. Even Nancy Pelosi had to applaud that a little bit. But how could, Bernie Sanders was sitting there grumping, we didn't have speeches like this back when I was honeymooning in the Soviet Union. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I mean, she was really stuck. Her response was hilarious. AOC talking about socialism. She's on with, what's his name, Chris Matthews. And I love this exchange.
What did you make of the president's, I thought, pretty aggressive statement about Venezuela tonight? And he talked about being a socialist country and how we're never going to be a socialist country. It was pretty truculent, but it tied the notion of socialism to that particular regime. What do you think about the president, why he did that?
Well, I think that he needs to do it because he feels like he feels himself losing on the issues. Every single policy proposal that we have adopted and presented to the American public has been overwhelmingly popular, even some with a majority of Republican voters supporting what we're talking about. When we talk about a 70% marginal tax rate on incomes over $10 million, 60% of Americans approve it. 70% of Americans believe in improved and expanded Medicare for all. A very large amount of Americans believe that we need to do something about climate change and that it is an existential threat to ourselves and to our children. And so I think he sees himself losing on the issues. He sees himself losing on the wall, on the southern border, and he needs to grasp at an ad hominem attack.
So, first of all, I love this. It's an ad hominem attack on socialism. I mean, the woman's a Latina. You think she'd be able to speak Latin, or maybe that's not what that means. An ad hominem attack is when you attack a person instead of his philosophy. It's when you say, oh, you're a racist, instead of saying, no, you're wrong because of this, this, and this. It's an attack on the man, right? But she's saying, but his attack is an attack on socialism as a philosophy. We are a free country. Socialism is a government takeover of the means of production. You know, one of the things about socialism that is confusing for people, and it's the reason AOC can get away with the garbage she's talking about, is socialism has changed. You know how when you're a leftist, you never have to say you're sorry. You just change. You know, you say like, oh, women should be able to sleep with anybody they want, just like men. And when that doesn't work out, it's like you suddenly say, why are men taking advantage of women all the time? You just change your position to the conservative position without ever saying that conservatives were talking like that all the time. Socialism used to be that the government owned the means of production. But when it turned out that, of course, destroyed countries, it destroyed economies because it meant there was no innovation, there was no competition. When has government ever done anything better than the private sector? Never. It never has, and so it just destroyed the country. Socialism has now changed where you get to keep the means of production, but when you make a profit, they steal your money. So that's a different thing. It's a different thing than what Marx started out with. They know that when you take over the means of production, you don't make any money, so they let you keep the means of production, but then they steal the money that you made and they spread it around to buy votes with programs that don't work. And so what she's talking about is that, and that destroys countries much slower, much more slowly, because what it destroys is your incentive to work. You work to make money. You work to improve your condition. And they just take that right away from you by saying, no, we know how to spend your money. You know, you earned it, but we know how to spend it. And when she says that people like the things that she's proposing, like Medicare for all, I want to see a poll that says, do you approve of Medicare for all? And then you get that number. And then do you know what Medicare for all is? Because nobody does. And once they find out that it's just socialized medicine, they don't like it. And once they find out that when you tax billionaires 70, 80, 90%, they leave the country and take their jobs and take their businesses with them, they don't like that so much either. So people like these things in ignorance. They like the way they sound. They like the sound of free stuff. But free stuff is very, very expensive, and they don't like it when it shows up. Anyway, I just love the ad hominem attack on socialism. Finally, the other thing that was just great was he did address abortion. He got to it a little late for me. I wish he'd kind of opened up on it, and he was a little short on it. But at least he said the words.
There could be no greater contrast to the beautiful image of a mother holding her infant child than the chilling displays our nation saw in recent days. Lawmakers in New York cheered with delight upon the passage of legislation that would allow a baby to be ripped from the mother's womb moments from birth. These are living, feeling, beautiful babies who will never get the chance to share their love and their dreams with the world. And then we had the case of the governor of Virginia, where he stated he would execute a baby after birth. To defend the dignity of every person, I am asking Congress to pass legislation to prohibit the late-term abortion of children who can feel pain in the mother's womb. Let us work together to build a culture that cherishes innocent life. And let us reaffirm a fundamental truth. All children, born and unborn, are made in the holy image of God.
You know, you can talk about, and it's absolutely fair to talk about, the craziness of the fact that it's Donald Trump, who has done anything but live a Christian life or even an upright life, who's the guy who's talking about this. But it is connected. It's connected to the fact that he's a reckless man. He's a reckless, insensitive guy who has put his marriage vows at naught, as we used to say, who's slept around. He's done all kinds of things that evangelical Christians or even just moral human beings would look down upon. And it may be funny that he's the person standing there, but it's because he's that guy that they couldn't take him down with all the stuff they pull. And it always works on people because people lose, they lose their courage. They lose their courage when they get hit with, oh, you're a racist. Oh, you're a sexist. If Republicans could learn nothing from Donald Trump, if they could learn nothing, it's that the only strategy is not to care. It is just to keep on walking, look straight ahead and keep on walking. And when he's talking about Virginia, by the way, that place is going into so much trouble now. I don't know if you've heard the latest news. This is breaking today, I think it is. You know, how did it go? First, it was the governor who showed up in blackface in his yearbook. And then it was the lieutenant governor who was accused of having raped a woman in 2004. There's now a story being reported from, where is it? It's from NBC News, that Justin Fairfax, the lieutenant governor, was in a meeting on Monday night, and he was referring to this lady, Vanessa Tyson, who claims she was attacked. He claims it was a consensual relationship. It was before he was married. And two sources in that meeting say Fairfax just unleashed a tirade of foul language against her, saying F that B, I guess we'll have to say. And so that he's in trouble. So if he can't take the office, if Northam resigns, if Fairfax can't take the office, it would fall to the Virginia Attorney General, who now admits that he wore blackface. What the hell is going on in Virginia? It's like, is nobody comfortable in his own skin in Virginia? So he is saying that he wore blackface. And I love the headline in the New York Times, by the way, a former newspaper. The headline in the New York Times reporting this was that he admits that he used dark makeup. I mean, even the guy himself said, I wore blackface, but the New York Times can't, it's a Democrat. They can't quite bring themselves to do it. All in all, I mean, I thought it was a terrific speech. It got great. I loved it got great immediate reviews. People really approved of the speech. And it just shows that they approve of Trump when his best stuff is always when he has a written speech. In Poland, that was one of his great speeches. His first State of the Union address was one of his great speeches. CNN could not even bring themselves to report the positive reaction to the speech. Here is David Chalian, their political director, reporting the poll that people approved and saying, yeah, but our polls don't mean anything.
This is our first look at a brand new instant poll, but it is among speech watchers. So I just want to stress here that for a State of the Union address, the president's partisans, his supporters, tend to turn out to watch the speech. This is true of a president of either party. So tonight, we saw a heavily Republican-skewed audience turn out to watch the president's speech. But look at this, a very positive reaction from those who watched the speech tonight. 59% very positive, 17% somewhat positive, 23% negative. I want you to see that very positive number, how that compares to Donald Trump's performances in the last couple of years when he's given a speech to a joint session of Congress like this. You'll see that he was, again, tonight at 59%. He was down at 48% very positive a year ago. Back when he first started the job and he addressed the Congress, he was at 57%. So he's back up.
So if only Republicans are watching the speech, how come in 2018 his polls dropped to what his basic popularity ranking usually is? It doesn't make any sense. Obviously, this was a great speech. It was a terrific speech, and it was a speech that he's being reasonable. He's doing this thing to the Democrats that the Democrats, because they despise him so much, don't even see how well he's doing, how strategic he's being. He is being reasonable. He's put them in a position where they're being unreasonable. He's hitting them on the places where they're being unreasonable, on abortion and on socialism. And he's then saying, give me my wall. Walls keep people out. And it just makes perfect sense. And interestingly, I thought Stacey Abrams, who delivered the Democrat response, always a tough thing to do, always a tough thing to compete with the president, standing in the House like that. But they were ready, because she's a black woman, they were ready to give her everything, all the praise in the world. And she kind of, it was a very flat speech, I thought. And it did have this thing which I just really dislike, because it is what the Democrat Party does. I mean, the whole thing about this country now is really we are the beneficiaries of the greatest generation. They won the war. They got rid of institutional racism. They have improved health, technology, all these things. We're benefiting from that. We should just be waking up and saying thank you every day. But instead, it's the constant complaining from the left. And here is Stacey Abrams on racism, cut number 13. I just found this kind of interesting. Go ahead.
In this time of division and crisis, we must come together and stand for and with one another. America has stumbled time and again on its quest towards justice and equality. But with each generation, we have revisited our fundamental truths And where we falter, we make amends. We fought Jim Crow with the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. Yet we continue to confront racism from our past and in our present, which is why we must hold everyone from the highest offices to our own families accountable for racist words and deeds, and call racism what it is: wrong.
I want to find the politician who's calling racism great. You know, who doesn't know that racism was wrong? We passed laws because there were laws that had to be overturned. We don't have to confront every racist heart. We'll never be done. We don't have to confront every racist word, every untoward thing that somebody says, every little trace of tribalism that's in every human mind, every single one, no matter what color they are. This is the problem with the Democrats' agenda. The problem has already been solved insofar as government can solve it. I mean, government can only correct what government has made wrong in the first place. Jim Crow was bad law. The laws overturned it with good laws. That's great. But what are you going to do? You're going to outlaw thoughts? You're going to outlaw speech? Of course, that's what they want to do. And it's just, they've got nowhere to go. They're not dealing with the problems of the future. And bizarrely, Donald Trump is. And I say this one more time. It's wonderful to hear a president stand up and speak common sense. It's amazing that it has to be a guy like Donald Trump, that we've created a culture where only a guy like Donald Trump is belligerent and insensitive enough to speak commonsensical truths. The question is now, is he strategic enough? Is he restrained and disciplined enough to keep that demeanor that made that State of the Union address so good in the future? If he starts tweeting out the garbage again, if he starts calling people horseface again, if he starts calling people names again, he wastes it all. He throws it all away. I think the midterms loss has taught him something. But whether or not he can actually put those teachings into action through discipline, it just remains to be seen.